Hello, everybody. This is my review and overview of The Crippled God by Steven Erikson. Spoilers, 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 obviously. But before I get into spoilers, I'll just say, love the series, love the book. But yeah, let's get down into it. This is it's been a journey. It's been a journey. Again, I just finished it last night. I probably should have spent a day or two kind of thinking about it to really kind of solidate my thoughts on it. But I wanted that initial reaction. I know I've been doing this since the midway point, or somewhat midway point. I started with book 6 and did my kind of overview of the series so far, and then I did a video for each book since. So this is obviously the last in the series. However, I know when I was doing my research for the 6th book, I actually kind of started looking back and looked at Steven's Wikipedia and found our his co-creator Ian C. Esselmont, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole different series of books by him. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But again, I just finished Crippled God. I know in my last book review of a reaction to Dust of Dreams, I kind of talked about the whole book, and then I kind of skipped over the big battle at the end, and then I was like, okay, well that kind of makes sense because the Crippled God is sort of like the second part of this book, and so it begins with the reaction to the big battle. That's when the it's sort of like one of the that battle. You really get the sense of, okay, this is real. The bridge burners and the bone hunters are in deep crap. This could go sideways very easily, and Steven Erikson is not adverse to, if it fits the story, to go ahead and do something drastic, kill off major characters. And so yeah, it was the first part of the Crippled God was kind of struggling with, okay, well, who survived this, you, and, and you kind of wiped your brow a little bit when I kind of found that most of the characters I was interested in survived. And so, but then uh, you know the thing with the Crippled God, I love the book. However, it has to get to, we've got a journey, and so we've got to get to the end. We have to face the Forkel Assault. I believe that's how you pronounce it. The big bad at the end. It's been. Let me just say this about Steven Erikson's writing. I'm very fascinated by it. I don't know if I've read many people that have written the way he does. I like the fact that he's telling a pretty much straightforward story. There's, you know, the way things pan out is sort of a traditional fantasy. There's a big story. There's a big 10 book arc. But the thing he does is he doesn't give you all the information. He treats you like one of the characters, and you don't know everything that all the characters know. A lot of times with books, you know everything the character knows, plus whatever the author gives you, and that's usually more information than the characters know. And but with this, there he kind of plays with you, because sometimes he'll give you more information than the character, sometimes he doesn't, and that kind of creates the tension and the anticipation is like, okay, well, what's going on? Because one of the characters, the major character, the adjunct Tavor, she's been kind of a mysterious character the whole time, and that was in part, it's very much intentional, because most of the characters in the story don't know what she's doing and are always kind of a few steps behind where she is, and they're always kind of doubting. Okay, well, does she know what she's doing? Does she have a plan? We're kind of following you with the thought that you do have a plan, but do you really? And the characters have that feeling, and so do the reader, obviously, because we're not given all of her information as well. So she's always been kind of a mysterious character, and you do get to know her most in this book. And by the end of it, you at least have an understanding of her, and you know who she is by the end of it, and you realize that you really knew her the whole time. It's just that you didn't have all the information. You were just speculating, and by the end of it, it kind of reconfirms what you knew of her, and it makes it much more real. Whenever you're kind of some when you know all the information in a story, you're kind of more detached. You're kind of an observer, but the way Steven Erikson writes it, you're very much an active part because you're actively trying to figure out what's going on, and that's not how a lot of traditional fantasy is written, and it makes it more engaging. It makes the fights much more exciting and visceral because you're right down there with the people. And there's a lot of lots and lots of battles in this. Four major battles in this, and every time he's right there with the various characters, and you're right there with the various characters on both sides, and you're feeling the struggles and the victories and the failures on both sides, and you really feel the emotional tug on you for both sides. And it's, like I said, there's very few writers that nail this, and Steven Erikson nails it to the 10th degree here. And you a lot of times during this book, I'm like, because the one of the things I didn't do was go on. I didn't deep dive into Reddit or any of the other like Facebook groups or anything like that because I didn't want spoilers. I kind of did that with Dune and spoiled a lot of stuff. And this is like a 10-book series, a huge time investment, and I didn't want to do that with this series. And so I kept far away. But one of the things I did look at was the star reviews of the various books, and they seem to keep high, like with the Goodreads, on all of them. And the last book had good reviews too, as far as the stars. So I was very anticipating that. Okay, well at least the fans or the people that rated it felt it was a solid book. And with the 10-book series, you want to make sure that the author sticks the landing. And I kind of got the sense that he could do that because with the previous books, they had very satisfying endings. There's certain authors that don't do that, like say Stephen King. He doesn't always stick the landing, and I think from interviews I've learned that Stephen King doesn't do outlines, or he doesn't really plan ahead. He kind of writes as he goes. And some writers can do that. I know we did an interview with Joe R. Lansdale a few years back, and he said that he doesn't have outlines. He doesn't plan out. But his stories are very kind of small, visceral stories that have a punch to them, but they're not real plot heavy. Well, actually, some of his mysteries are kind of plot heavy, but he goes through a lot of drafts and whatnot. He's normally kind of sticks landing. He's one of my favorite writers, but I'd have to anticipate that Steven Erikson plans this out, because you can't write a huge 10-book series and not do it. One of the things, and why I mentioned Stephen King, is he did do a fantasy series called The Dark Tower, which I love parts of it, but I don't feel he stuck the landing. I think his series, he kind of rushed through it, and again, I think it kind of goes towards his style of writing in the fact that he kind of writes as he goes, and that series kind of really felt like that. There's some things in it. I won't spoil that series just in case anyone's out there that's going to read it. But he goes in directions that I don't think if you'd planned it out, you would have done that. It kind of takes some turns that don't make sense to me. And like in the fourth book of that series is I really love that book, and it meant a lot to me for the longest time, and that was the last book until he rushed through. I say rushed is kind of how I feel the last three books in the series, and the way it ended, it just doesn't sit right with me, and so it kind of tarnishes the whole series for me. So I was very cognizant of reading a series, and also a series that was finished, because I did read a story of Song and Fire, and I'm still waiting for the end of that book series, and so I didn't want to. I wanted a big epic fantasy series, but I wanted to read a finished one, and since this seemed to be finished, and it seemed to have a consistent rating throughout the whole series. Uh, you know, it seemed safe for me to dive into it, and it really paid off. This series really kind of hits me right in the right spots. I know there's certain writers that just fit. There's certain writers that you appreciate, but maybe they don't write to your soul. And again, you can appreciate what they're doing. It's great stuff, but it just doesn't hit. It kind of hits left of center for you. Whereas this hits me dead at my heart, and I love the series. In like I said, each book I've expounded upon this again and again. They each tell a complete story. Um, Obviously, there's sort of cliffhangers and story threads that kind of hang open, but they tell a satisfying story. And by the end of it, once you read the last page, you feel like you've been on a journey. It's complete, but the characters go on. And now with this book, obviously it being the 10th and final book in the series, you wanted a sense of completion. And so as I was reading this book, I kept had this feeling of, oh, will he kind of wrap things up to the point where I'm satisfied. I'm not feeling that we're getting to that point. And even by the last 200, 100 pages, I was like, okay, can he pull this out? Because I don't know. I'm kind of worried here. And one of the things that he does in this book that you have to do at this point is really show the peril that the characters are in, and he does that by taking the bone hunters and the bridge burners across that crystal desert, and that part of the book was really tough to read. To see them in struggling, and it's not it's not a fun read to read your characters in torment. And I'm a slow reader, so and he spends a lot of time with them during this period. So I have to admit that it took me a while to get through those parts, and I know and I appreciate what he was doing there, and you have to do that for the payoff at the end. But it was tough, and people people are engaged with me. I'm very excited about this series, and I've talked about it, so people knew I was on the last book, and they kept going, okay, how's it going? And I was like, oh well, I'm trying to savor the book. I don't want it to end. As because I didn't want to. As a book fan, you want to talk about the book, but I know that people that ask me about it are just wanting the cliff notes. They don't want me to go deep dive into what I'm kind of excited about with this, and so that's why I make these videos, so I could actually talk about it, and hopefully express it to people that are similarly inclined and appreciate what I'm saying. So, shout out to you people that are listening. But yeah, I know that they didn't really want to know what was going on. So, I just said, hey, I'm really digging it. But yeah, so um, but yeah, and also I don't want to skip over like the other side of things um, with the what are they called? But the shadow realm where they're kind of pushing back the Indoor Elysions with the dragons coming through. Uh, that whole battle where they're kind of bottlenecked and kind of defending the shore people. That was with the test test Andes until they showed up to defend them. That was a huge battle there. That again, he has a way of describing these battles um, that are very epic, and you feel like you feel the tension, and that things could go either way. A lot of times, when you're reading something, the battle's sort of like a foregone conclusion. But a lot of times, but with his books, you could almost see all the piles of bodies that are piling up on both sides, and you really feel the tension. He really knows how to build up that tension and really play it out. And so you've got that satisfying battle kind of midway through the book, and then it builds out to the final two battles at the end. One at the spire, and then the other one on the barren hill with the crippled god. And let's say both battles were satisfying. Um, there were epic epic battles. There's been some very epic battles through the whole series, but those two battles were legendary. The fact that when Gessler and Storm were making up through the spire to face that Forko Saul, who's guarding the heart. You really feel it, and the two dogs that's been through it since the third book. Memory of Ice. I was always in the back of my mind. Okay, well, are these dogs that have been through the whole thing? Is there going to be a payoff? And yes, things do pay off at the end with the dogs, and is very satisfying. And there's, I think Erikson has a very much love for dogs and hounds, and that seems to be a theme. I mean, there's these giant dogs in these books. Very much a theme. I'm not very much a dog person. I'm more of a cat person. But I grew to appreciate these mangled dogs that Bent and Roach were very very much within my heart by the end of the book, and you really kind of see who the final heroes are. Fiddler, who really didn't stand out in that the first book. He really became like the heart and soul of the series, and by the end of it, you really feel kind of a fulfilling, a completion of his story arc. Again, there's so many characters that he's juggling. You have this feeling of, okay, is he going to be able to really complete the stories of these characters? Is he going to really, give a satisfying ending to the whole thing? And I think he did. I was really satisfied with the end. The two epilogues were amazing. Like I said, the final two battles, that battle on the Baron, really really kind of pulled out all the stops, kind of brought it down to the core characters. Now I think there's the criticism of Steven Erikson being heartless and being able to kill off as many characters. I was kind of surprised at how many actually survived at the very end of it. I thought maybe more of the main people were going to die. One of the characters that were kind of one of the minor characters that really stood out to me, and that was one of my favorites, was Bottle, and I kept expecting him to die at one point. And so I was kind of I was very much satisfied that he survived, and hopefully maybe we'll get a story from him in the future, a solo story. But all the core characters that you started with do have satisfying conclusions. I mean, even even Whiskey Jack, who who's now a ghost, he had a satisfying conclusion with his love Carlot, and the fact that he brought back that love between the two of them from the third book really shows you that he knew what he was planning on, or at least he made it look like he knew what he was doing by pulling all of those strings back together at the end. And the whole conclusion with the Crippled God and the jade spires, or pillars that were coming down from the sky, that whole ending was beautifully done, with the dragons, those all disparate things with the dragons and the elder gods coming in at the end. It just, I was wondering, how is this all going to tie together, and he did it flawlessly. I don't have any complaints about it. A lot of times with stories, I have something kind of sticks in my craw at least a little bit. And even I know in the last video I did, I kind of the big thing I didn't like was from the whole series was the Kachane Chamal, I think is how you pronounce it, the lizard guys. They just were kind of like the sore thumb through the whole series for me. But by this last book, I kind of felt their humanity and their love for Gessler and Storm and the strain. It all kind of made sense and kind of came to a sense of completion for me. Again, I'm kind of gushing here, and I'm trying to be as eloquent as I can be, or kind of draw the strings together myself for a more meaningful ending. But all I can do is kind of I don't want to do a golf clap, but just great job all around that Steven Erikson can kind of do this to really make this series complete for me. And again, maybe not all the strings were tied together, but all the meaningful ones for me were tied together. One of the things that was important for me is I kept through the whole book saying, okay, when are we going to get back to Crocus and Epsilar? Where's their story? That's a major story, a relationship through the whole series that I needed to be paid off, and the fact that he did do it in the epilogue made me happy. Also, the Perrin, who was at the very start of the series in the prologue, I liked his story arc and the completion of him being there for his sister Tavar at the end. I know he didn't do a lot of heavy lifting in this book. He was more or less the the maybe some, if you're being complaining, you could say he's more of a ex machina kind of element to the book, but I think it was earned. I don't think it was just a device. He did he was very instrumental through the whole thing, and I guess the only complaint I would have is maybe have a little bit more of what he did towards the end to make his stuff a little bit more justified. But I think with the series being as big as it is, it's understandable that his story was a little bit curtailed towards the end and wasn't as fleshed out as some of the other things were. And I love the artist and his toad friend. So that was always fun to see whenever they showed up. And I would like to have seen more of them. That's one of the things I love about Erikson stuff is that every character is a character in and of itself, and every one of them you want to know more about. Obviously, if he told everything about all of the characters, it would make it a truly unwieldy series, and would be filled with bloat. I know some people may have complained about maybe the stories having a lot of filler in it, but I think for me it was all justified. I enjoyed the whole thing. Again, I'm a slow reader. It took me a long time to finish this series. In fact, it took me about 9 months to read it. I started it back in July, and when I first started the book, I had actually I didn't ever really plan on reading the series. I was encouraged. I'm a huge fan of black metal, and I was when I was listening to some on YouTube, I was recommended a band called Caledon Broad, and I think I talked about this on a previous video. And their Echoes of Battle album was recommended to me, and started listening to it, and I fell in love with it. And I started looking into the band and found out their name was based on Malazan Book of the Fallen, and I was very much engaged with that. But I kept reading about the series, and I kept reading that it was hard to get into. It was very dense. You really weren't going to, you really have to devote a lot of time to the series to enjoy it. But I was like, okay, I'm still kind of intrigued because this black metal band wrote an album about the series. So I ordered Gardens of the Moon from Amazon, and I had just finished a series or a book collection of Elric by Michael Moorcock, and the power went out, and I had just finished that book, and I didn't really have much to read. With the power being out, I couldn't read anything that was on my Kindle, and I had the physical book of Gardens of the Moon, so I started it, and because it was such a huge series, and I heard so much things about it was tough to read, that I kind of put it on the back burner, and a lot of times when I put something on the back burner, it never gets read, but it got pushed ahead because it was physically something I could read at the time, and so I kind of dived into it, and I'm glad I did, because I fell in love with the characters and started reading it. Was so engaged by the end of it that I had to start reading the rest of the series. The interesting thing for me personally was that while I was reading this first book, I found out that I got laid off from my job, and very very personally dramatic for me. And the thing that kind of kept me sane and was my escape was the series. And through my journey of being laid off and trying to find a new job, this series kind of stuck with me. And I found a new job, and I started it. And when I started the new job was right around when I was reading Bone Hunters. And again, I kind of finished out the series with this new job. But yeah, it was like that friend there that I could always turn to during tough times. And I know everybody has a different story of maybe an author or a series that was very meaningful for them during a tough time. And I know losing and getting a new job is not the worst thing that could happen to you, but it was very personally kind of challenging for me. I know some other people. And I've read books during like a big breakup, and those books stick out in my mind as well. But yeah, so this book series is going to have a very meaningful thing to me, just in the fact that it was there for me during a tough time for myself. So again, a personal thank you to Steven Erikson for being there for me. But I'm sure everybody else have had maybe similar or different experiences with the series. If you want, you could say in the comments of this video what if you've had some what Steven Erikson how meaningful his books and the series was to you. I'd be happy to read those. Very interested. But yeah, again, a personal thank you to the author for being there for me. And as I scroll through here, I notice that there's some books that I haven't read yet. The Botchlin and Corbel Broach books. I'm very much interested in reading those. I know there were characters from they made their entrance in Memories of Ice and Fire, and I really I was very fascinated to them by them. So I definitely want to read those books. I know he's written a prequel books. I think two of the books have come out, and he's written a sequel for Karsa Orlong, which again he's been introduced to this in the series, had a major portion of it in House of Chains, and has been kind of a looming figure through the whole series. And he didn't get his payoff, so I'm sure that the sequel is all about his story and his the payoff to that character. So I'm very much interested in reading that. And again, I'm very much excited to read E.N.C. Esselmont's books in his series. Maybe take a break from reading the Malazan books, just because it's been, like I said, a huge time investment for me. Like I said, I'm a slow reader. This series has been, like I said, very much a big factor in my life, and I've devoted a lot of time to the series. So I've kind of neglected some of the things that I wanted to read, and so now's the time to kind of do catch ups. And so I'm definitely planning on returning to this world. But it may not be anytime soon, and I don't know if I'll do any more videos. I know that there's been a big response, a lot of uptick of views for me for these videos whenever I put these out. So I know there's an interest. Also in the comments, if you do want me to continue with, say, my reactions to the E.N.C. Esselmont, go ahead and let me know in the comments if you want to see whenever I return to the series. And also if you want me, when I do get to the prequels or the sequel, if you want me to kind of go over those as well as I read those, that would be helpful in my decision on whether or not I do these. But again, this is I am part 50% of the first to last of Nerdom. I'm Tom. And my co-host Mike, he's very much interested in this series as well. As you can imagine, I've kind of gone over been spouting how much I love the series to him, so it's kind of infected him. So we may return with a review, a joint review of Gardens of the Moon whenever he gets a chance to read it. So kind of look forward to that. But if you're a nerd like me, fantasy is not your only love. So we've on our channel we review movies. We go into all the things that nerds love. We did a video on videotape collecting. We're way into comic books. We just did a video we're kind of reviewing X-Men '97. So kind of look at our back catalog and see if there's anything that you might want to look at. Give us a like and subscribe if you like our content. But yeah, again, very satisfying series. I very much loved it. It's going to be a part of my life from here on out. I don't know if I'll reread the series, not because I don't want to. It's just such a huge time investment. A lot of times I just would rather read something new as a part, because it's just it kind of comes down to time. Is like, okay, do I have the time to go back? And I say that, but this series is and will be definitely a part of my life, and I loved how it ended with Fiddler on that pier. Giving that a little talk to that little kid, and maybe that kid's going to be in a future book by Steven Erikson. And that's another thing, I appreciate that he took this journey and found a completion to it. I know every author has a different process, and that process works for that author. And I my thoughts after reading this and being thoroughly satisfied with this, I had a stray thought of, well, I know George R. R. Martin's having trouble finishing his series, and I don't know if you'd be interested or if it would help, but I couldn't help but think maybe Steven Erikson could pay him a visit and help him kind of flesh out the end of the series, and kind of uh, help him through the end. And even if God forbid, Martin never is able to finish it. I almost think that and again, I don't know if he would ever be even interested in it, but I think Steven Erikson would be a good person to pick up the reins and finish that series, if it ever came to that. So, but that's just kind of stray thoughts. I'm very much excited. The fact that there's even more Steven Eriksons to read within this world and without. Some of his other books seem very interesting to me. Again, he's quickly, I didn't know who he was a year ago, and I'm totally in love with his books. And that's the great thing is about reading and finding authors. You really find, you can find gems that have been always there, just you didn't know they exist. And again, I'm at the point where I've finished the series. I've got so much more to read from it. But if you have any recommendations of authors that are similar to Steven Erikson that you love, I would more than welcome suggestions. Also, I've thought about what would happen if these were adapted into a series or a series of movies. I think they would work better as a TV series. But again, with any adaptation, there's compromises that have to be made, and I don't know if I would be happy with huge compromises to the series, because it's so very much perfect in how it's done, and as it's written. And to film it, you'd have to make so many changes to make it work as a series or a movies, that I don't know if I would be happy with those compromises. I think Gardens of the Moon, I know that it was originally written as a movie script, and you could kind of see, and then it was fleshed out into a book, so I could see where that one would be a great series, or maybe stripped down to a movie. That one would be an exciting experience. So I think that one would be the best one to be adapted. But yeah, to do the rest of it, you'd have to do it as as maybe even multiple series that would take place simultaneously, and then culminate into like a big massive series at the end. And with a book you have an unlimited budget, and this series being filmed, I couldn't imagine how much it would cost to get this whole thing produced and made. So, but yeah, hopefully, if it does get made, it would do it justice, because it would be a disservice if it wasn't. All right, I think I'm starting to babble, so I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. Much like the series, I didn't want it to end. I don't want my discussion of this to end, because I'm thinking maybe I forgot something, and this is the last video, and I don't want to be at the end and say, oh man, I should have said this, I should have said that. But anyway, I'm out. Again, just like and subscribe if you like us, and I'm Tom, and I'm out.